Last week, we went pretty deep. We kicked off the channel by talking about childhood trauma in the birth chart and how you can find it. This week, we're going to take a step back. We're going back into a slightly more shallow side of the pool so that we can set the stage for this astrological journey that we're taking together, okay? We'll answer some key questions like, what is astrology? Where did it come from? Why should I give a crap about it? What you gonna do for me, astrology? You know, those types of questions. So I'll give you some answers as to how astrology can help you broadly in your life, but I'll also give some more specific examples of questions you might ask or things you can answer that can be answered with astrology. All right. Hey homies, my name is Ebony and this is my channel Homegirl Astrology, where we support Black women ages 30 and up on their life transformational journeys by better understanding how to use astrology as a self-awareness tool. The goal here is to help you most efficiently and effectively live out your natal promise when it comes to finance, career, love, family, life purpose, all of that, okay? So just holler at us, subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications so that you can get this information hot off the presses. As soon as I hit publish, it comes straight to you. All right? Okay, so let's get into this. Let's talk about astrology. Now I'm going to reference my notes probably quite a bit for this video because I want to make sure that I get the information right. I know it, but you know, I want to make sure that I'm presenting it correctly for you. Okay, so what is astrology? Astrology is 10,000 plus years old, and it's a field of knowledge that looks at the possible influence of celestial bodies on the earth, on natural phenomena, political events, and above all, on the human disposition, our character, and our fate. And this last bit was a quote from Reinhold Eberton, who was a noted German astrologer and the author of a book, Combination of Stellar Influences, which is a very well-known book in the canon of astrology. So when did it start? I said it's 10,000 plus years old, so, you know, back then. But the beginnings of astrology as we know it started when humans were just trying to survive, right? They were probably living in caves somewhere, knowing and realizing that it was beneficial to know when the sun would go up and when it would come down. So they started paying attention to that and realizing that when the sun goes up, we should probably work. We should probably go out and hunt and gather when it's bright outside. And when it goes down at night and the moon comes out, we should probably chill. We should probably sleep and stay out of harm's way. Okay. So from there, they started tracking the days, and those days they realized turned into seasons and years. So they also started tracking months based on the moon cycle. And then folks were noticing that the sun didn't stay in the same position all the time. So that's when they were starting to track the seasons and realize, like, hey, when the sun's over here, we should probably plant. And then when it comes over here, it's probably time to harvest. And when it's not out, we shouldn't be planting or harvesting anything. We should just chill out a little bit, right? So early civilizations were tracking the sun's movements and using these large stones, tablets in circles to be able to monitor that over the course of the year. So that's why you see things like Stonehenge and similar structures in other areas of the world. The ancients were smarter than we give them credit for. All right. Ancient folks also learned that when Mars was in a certain part of the sky, that war was imminent. So from there, they're able to start attributing, you know, things happening on Earth based on things that are happening in the sky. So it gave meaning to the planetary bodies and the celestial bodies. All right, so then kind of fast forwarding quite a bit, starting around the Babylonian and Assyrian times, we're starting to see prophecies being made for individuals based on what's happening in the sky. So they were only made for the king at that time because the king was like that dude, right? And when you look at the prophecy of the king, their thinking was when you make this prophecy for him, you're really making the prophecy for everyone that is also ruled by him. So all the people in the land and in the realms were subject to the prophecy of the king, because if you think about him as being all powerful, then they're going to be impacted in some way. You move on towards the Middle Ages and we start to see other people who are getting their horoscopes read. So the bishops, the judges, the wealthy business people, they're now a part of this as well, starting to be able to see how the planetary influences are impacting them. And then, fast forward a bunch of years to today, and you've got, Astro Matrix, and you've got the pattern, and you've got all these apps that people are looking at to try to see how things are impacting them. And of course, you have astrologers and businesses like Homegirl Astrology, where you can do that on a much more personal level. So that was the quick and dirty version of how we got to where we are. I left out a lot, and I acknowledge that. But the real question that we're answering here is, why do people even care about this? And the answer is astrology impacts us. We learn from it. On a person-to-person level, we can learn about ourselves, understand ourselves and those around us, which can help us to better interact with one another and make changes within our own lives. So when you learn about astrology and your specific chart, you can learn about how you can operate in alignment with what you were born to do. So as our good sis Beyonce says, if you feel insignificant, you better think again. You're part of something way bigger. And the chart really elucidates what that big picture is for you. If you think about it, very powerful people have had astrologers on a retainer for millennia. They wanted to know how to make their next move their best move, and they had an astrologer by their side to help them do that. And this is U.S. presidents, this is monarchs, this is other very wealthy people in the world. So the rest of us have been out here just kind of like raw dogging life when we didn't have to. Now astrology is more accessible than ever. So I created this channel and this business to help my sisters out, because I didn't want us to miss out on what is available, and I didn't want people to just be walking around in confusion, feeling like they don't have purpose when they do, and it's very clear. The guidance is there. You just have to find it. I'm here, so you don't really have to find me. You just, DM me or whatever. All right, so now that we got that part out of the way, what types of astrology exist in the world? If you're interested in learning about any of these that I'm going to go through in more detail, drop a note in the comments, okay? All right, so we'll start with horary astrology, which is finding the answer to a question by interpreting a chart of the moment that the question was asked. So this is a divination method. So you may come to me, because I do offer this service with Homegirl Astrology. You may come to me and say, should I take this job offer? Is this relationship over? Should I take this trip this weekend? Should I sign up for this class? So what I'll do is we'll, do a little thing to acknowledge that God is in the building, okay? And then you'll ask your question, and then I'll tell you about the circumstances surrounding your question. So if you're asking me, is this relationship over? I'm going to look at you in your chart. I'm going to look at your partner in the chart and see what your interactions are like as individuals and how you're interacting together. I'll also likely cross-reference your natal chart if I have it to see if this is even someone that, should be around. You may be worried about whether the relationship is over, and that's not even your person, for real. So those are the types of questions you ask in horary, just things that are more about of the moment, what's happening right now. They feel like big decisions, but they're not the life chart. Okay. Another type of astrology that's out there is electional astrology. So this is determining the most favorable time for the launch of a particular endeavor or event based on astrological factors that are in play at the moment. So you're kind of trying to reverse engineer the chart. I have weird feelings about electional. We'll save those for another time. But with electional, you could do something like planning a surgery date to achieve the best possible outcome. So if it is a surgery that you can plan, sometimes you have emergency surgery, you can't really control when it's done, right? But if you wanted to get, a nose job, you'd want to go to a medical electional astrologer to help you figure out the best time to cut, which is a Martian thing connected to the planet Mars. They want to see where Mars is and want to see where other things are, things that are related to the nose and the face and all that in your chart to make a decision. You could pick a wedding date using an electional astrologer. This is a very common thing to do in India, where most astrologers, I believe, practice sidereal astrology there. It's a big thing to pick your wedding date based on, you want to make sure that you're born under a happy sky, so that'll have a positive impact on your married life. You can also pick an optimal time for your social media posts, or pick an optimal time to start your business or to run a specific promotion. These are all things that are connected to electional astrology, and there are astrologers out there who do this type of work. Moving on to natal astrology. This is, I would say, our bread and butter here at Homegirl Astrology and what we just really love to do. We're assigning meaning to the symbols in the chart and seeing their relationships to one another, and then understanding and interpreting what that could mean in terms of what you've already experienced in life and what you will experience in life and how those things will play out. So we can see what you look like as a person. We can see the relationship to other people in your life. We can see your personality, things you like and dislike probably, and also see what types of events you may experience. Also, this is a kind of a fun thing. With natal charts, you can also start to see what the person will physically look like based on some of their placements as well. So there's like a whole series that other astrologers have done about rising signs and what physical traits are associated with those. So I find that very interesting. I may do something connected to that in the future. So if you're interested, let me know. I find that super cool to be able to look at someone or talk to them and understand what signs they are based on just that. So drop a note in the comments if you're interested. Okay. All right, moving on from natal into mundane astrology. So this is the astrology of the world, the astrology of large groups of people, and of global events. These are global predictions. So for those, you look at the new moon, the full moon, the sun moving into different things. You look at planetary conjunctions, which means the planets coming together. And then one great example of this is with Uranus and Taurus. When it moved into Taurus, there's a lot of talk from mundane astrologers about financial shakeups that would occur connected to Uranus moving into the sign of Taurus, which is connected to money, and Uranus being, as I talked about in the last video, a sign of shakeups and separations and change and instability. So I think we've seen some of that in the markets, but it's still, Uranus is going to be in Taurus for a while, so we still have time. All right, and then moving into the branches of these types. So they're kind of like horizontals that overlay across the different types of astrology. So there's financial astrology. So I just mentioned financial markets in the discussion of mundane astrology, but you can also look at the finances within your own chart. So I do tend to look at that for my clients, just kind of see what your overall financial promise is like. You can also do that from an electional perspective as well. So when should I invest in this particular stock? You could ask financial horary questions too. Evolutionary astrology is another branch. So how are people evolving over the course of their lives? With psychological astrology, then you're looking at people's personalities and how they're interacting with others. With medical, as I briefly mentioned with the surgical example, with medical, it's very interesting. Doctors back in the day used to have to know astrology before they were able to practice medicine. This is because with medical astrology, it's great, especially when you have an issue that's difficult to diagnose. A medical astrologer will look at your chart and see what ailments you're likely to experience or ailments that you could experience in your lifetime based on the combinations of planets and signs in your chart. And from there, they can kind of propose some things that kind of go along with symptoms that you might be having, especially based on the timing of it. That's why it's very important if you go see a medical astrologer to know the onset time and date of your symptoms. That's very helpful information. But again, they can help you pick a surgery date, can help you figure out what's going on with you in terms of illness. Within medical astrology, we have a subset that is focused on fertility astrology. So understanding, can I get pregnant? When will I get pregnant? When should I try to get pregnant based on what's going on in the chart? Now, I do not practice fertility astrology. That's not my skill set at this time in life, but I can look at the chart and tell you what's likely based on what I'm seeing, but highly recommend going to a fertility astrologer if this is a specific question that you have, and I have someone I can recommend to you. I do look a little bit at the medical stuff just because that's something I'm kind of, dabbling in right now, hoping to get further into it. So I can look at your chart and tell you things about yourself. I've had clients or one client recently, I told him, you probably experienced anemia at some point in your life, or maybe some type of toxins in the blood, and he had lead poisoning when he was a kid, which led him to experience anemia. Another recent client, I talked to her about, the possibility of her skin crawling, like, hey, you might experience your skin crawling from time to time. And for me, I have no clue what that feels like. I've never experienced my skin crawling. But she said, yeah, actually I do. My skin does crawl, but I do get that sensation. So there's some realness to it. I have no reason to say these things other than beyond looking in the chart. So medical is just amazing to me. I left something out, guys. So you can see my background is a little bit different, but I needed to share this with you right now. So a lot of you have come probably from the Exodus Summit or from Stephanie Perry's YouTube challenge, and that's how we've come to my channel. I wanted to mention this to you all because many of you are moving overseas or looking to make your Blaxit or your, exodus from whatever country you're in. And it's helpful to look at an Astro Cartography chart to see where you should go in the world, right? So what they'll do in an Astro Cartography astrology reading is overlay your natal chart on a chart or on a map of the world to see where certain energies are most prominent in the world for you. So for example, I moved to Lisbon, Portugal a month ago, and I've been finding myself in the company of a lot of women who are very supportive and have been great accountability partners, so shout out to you all. And then I happened to look at my astrocartography chart after I was thinking to myself, man, there's a lot of women who are supportive in this environment that I'm currently in. So I wonder if there's a moon line that's close by where I'm at. I look at the chart, the moon line is the closest line. It's a moon trine ascendant line in my astrocartography chart, which means that there are supportive women in the environment. So I thought that was very cool. So definitely go to astro.com and create your own astrocartography chart. You can check that out. And I think they do a pretty good job of helping you be able to kind of click around and see what the energies are. Or you can also find an astrologer who does astrocartography readings. We don't do those right now, but will in the future. And I'm sure I can refer you to someone if you reach out. So carry on with the rest of the video. So that's gonna do it for today. This again was not an exhaustive list of all that's out there in the world of astrology, but I just wanted you to have an idea of what's available to you, like what's on the menu, okay? So feel free to drop comments below if this was interesting to you, or if you have questions, or there's other stuff you want to see in future videos. Feel free to go back and watch the last video that we did on childhood trauma. If you haven't already, there's more down to earth and interesting astrology content to come. So again, please subscribe, turn on notifications so you can get that hot and ready little Caesar situation from Homegirl Astrology. And if you stay for the entire video, thank you, salute to you. And check us out on homegirlastrology.com, our home on the web. Book your reading with us if you'd like to get one-on-one astrological insights, whether it be a horary chart reading, as we described earlier, or a natal chart reading. Also sign up for the mailing list so you'll be the first to know about upcoming happenings at Homegirl Astrology. I'll include a link to the website in the description below for easy access. And again, comment, like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much.